feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer!
I don't care what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule!
Welcome back, everybody, to a very special broadcast of the Sports Experience podcast. We have made it to episode 300, and my God, I can't believe we've made it, Chris.
I know. I didn't think we were going to be doing this for this long. 300 episodes. It's crazy.
5 years.
5 years.
5 years we've been doing this podcast, and just a big thank you to everyone out there who's subscribed and watched our videos and, stuck with us for this length of time. And if you haven't and you're just joining us now, please make sure you like, follow, watch, and subscribe to all our videos because we have quite the catalog and quite the diverse catalog, I would say, of all sports.
That's very true. That's very true.
Got to say, since this is a special episode, we always like to pick a very special person.
Oh, man.
And today we have quite the special person for this Leonidas 300, as our producer said, episode. And who do we have, Chris?
Got Lawrence Taylor, LT, the Peruvian marching linebacker is what they've been calling him.
I was going to say the nose clams linebacker.
You know what, dude? He has many nicknames.
He could dance the night away in a Bill Belichick defense.
That's what I'm looking for.
What do you want, an exotic bird, Lawrence? Lawrence Julius Taylor, born February 4th, 1959 in Williamsburg, Virginia. First of three sons born to Clarence and Iris Taylor. His dad was a dispatcher in the Newport News shipyards, and his mom was a school teacher.
That's right. And I guess growing up, he was a tough kid to wrangle in. That's what his mom said. He was like, my other two kids were fine. They would, they would like ask me to do something. I would say no. Lawrence would just do things and then be like, oh, that. Let me tell you about that.
Oh, the thing with the thing.
Yes.
I'm going to do that.
He was just one of those kids that was just kind of wild and did not grow up playing football. Well, at least not organized football.
What was it? The Pirates of the Caribbean. It was more of a guideline than a rule.
That's
to
right.
Lawrence. Like, well, no, that's a suggestion.
Yep.
Not necessarily a rule. His mom called him more than a handful.
Yep.
Got his fair share of spankings growing up. An incredible athlete, like most of the athletes we talk about growing up.
Just grew up an amazing athlete, but was focused on baseball.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Well, I was going to say, what if he had gone to those, maybe a Pirates? What if he had stuck with baseball and played for the Pirates in the 80s? That's all I'm saying.
He would have been back behind the dish wearing the pirate parrot outfit,
That's what I mean. I was thinking that. I was like, oh, he started as a catcher. Man.
Oh, my God.
This could have been a different story for our 300, but still a 300.
It definitely would have been a 300. He would have just been hitting dingers instead of lighting up opposing quarterbacks.
Exactly.
So when he gets to high school, though, he hadn't played any organized football until he was 15.
Yep.
It was basically like sandlot or in the backyard, and he had kind of a hard adjustment in high school when he first started playing.
Well, I was going to say, I felt like he just didn't have the ins and outs of what being a football player was. He was very like baseball centric. And then it really started to click junior year. And that's when I feel like his athleticism and his like knowledge of the game came in, where he's like, oh, I get what I'm supposed to be doing.
Apparently, like, coach had told him, like, you want to stop these guys from kicking your butt? You got to kick their butt right back.
Yep.
And that's exactly what he did. And because he started so late, though, and because this isn't the present day, not a lot of schools were in on him until basically his senior year.
And that's why he went to what would be considered not a football school, especially at the time. So it's kind of crazy because senior year, he does have a great year.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at it. But then people are like, yeah, he's been playing football for like 2-3 years. We're not going to go in on him.
And he was like a two-way end. Could you imagine him playing tight end?
Oh, my God.
It would have been like tragic but cruel but fun grind.
God, that would seriously though.
Because he would have dominated
Yep.
just because of his like sheer size. What did he end up like 6'3", 240, 250, just
Yep.
an absolute Adonis of a person. So he goes to North Carolina. He played a bunch of different. They couldn't find a spot to play him in until about his junior year.
I was going to say, I heard he played like 7 different positions.
Yeah.
And then this is what his coaches at North Carolina said was he was just a unbelievably reckless player where he would just be like jumping 6-7 feet in the air to try and block punts, field goals, and then just coming down on his neck. Like he just didn't care about what happened to him. He wanted to make the play.
It was just this like raw clay that you needed to mold.
Yep.
His linebacker coach at UNC, I did want to add, was Al Groh, who coached for Bill Parcells for a number of years with the Giants, Patriots, and Jets. Later head coach of the Jets in that weird Belichick afterwards era.
Yep.
But he basically, by his junior year, was awesome and just setting ACC records out the wazoo after they moved him to linebacker.
Because
he found his spot.
I was just going to say he found his spot, and he was so aggressive on the defensive end that it was just like, you're right. He was just setting records on a mediocre team and was pretty much became the football player that was everybody was like, oh, this is what we saw. The potential of what we saw, this is what it really is.
Like he found a spot and he's picking up the game, because you see a lot of these athletes where like they start in a sport really young and they're just like specialized.
Yep.
Where he's really intelligent, and we'll probably get into it later as to how that kind of covered up a lot of the off-field things that he did. But he was a football savant.
Yes.
And when you get him in a spot and you tell him to do a certain thing, or he feels like he'll do a certain thing, he's just going to go do it.
Yep.
He's just going to do it and get it done. 79 and 80 at UNC, first team All-American, those type of deals. And heading into the 1981 draft, he's thought by many to be the top player in the entire class.
I do want to say his senior year, he got 16 sacks, I think, which is he was so good that I think the consensus going into the draft, they said like there were 2 GMs that were like, if we get the first pick, we're not picking Lawrence Taylor. Every other GM was like, yeah, he's the obvious number 1 pick. And one of those was the GM for the Saints. And guess who got the number 1 pick that year?
The New Orleans Saints. And they took George Rogers, Heisman Trophy winner, number 1, who had a great career.
I was going to say not bad, but if you look at it now, nobody's taking a running back number 1.
No, God, no. But
so
that was the era. And like by talking about that era, if you have 16 sacks in college football when teams are maybe passing 15 times a game.
Yeah.
You got to be an absolute, because that's the thing. If you don't know who LT is, he checked literally every box: size, speed, agility, tenacity, intelligence, like every single box he checked. And you could play him inside linebacker, outside linebacker. He was that smart and that athletic to do it.
I remember somebody saying, they were like, yeah, he reminds me of Dick Butkus as like someone who's just going to be so much better than everybody else. And then somebody was like, no, he's better than Dick Butkus.
Butkus isn't getting that many sacks.
It really was that, like, coming out of college that senior year, people were like, this is the guy.
Yeah. He wanted to play for the Dallas Cowboys,
yes,
which I thought was hilarious.
He said that, which, I mean, whew.
And then getting Hollywood Henderson's number 56, that makes it oh so spicy when we get later in this episode. So he's taken number 2 overall. He became 56, and he said, besides Hollywood Henderson, he wanted that number to be his own. And we're seeing that with Abdul Carter now, where he's like, well, I want to be 56. It's like, hey now. You're going to be awesome. I bet he's going to be awesome. But
yeah.
LT awesome? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Basically, in the first practice, he worked his way up to the first team.
I thought that was so awesome. They were like, dude, you're third string. And they were like, it was like a half an hour into training where you're like, get this guy on the fucking squad because he is playing. I think it might have been Parcells that just came over to their head coach and was just like, he needs to be playing in every game.
Because, Parcells was the defensive coordinator at this time, and Belichick is the linebackers coach, and Parcells is basically Lou Browning it going, get this guy a uniform.
Exactly. Shit, I've been cut already?
Oh, Jesus. But learns right away and jumps in, and you could make the argument the second he entered the league, he's the most dominant player.
Preseason, first season, they're playing against your team.
Yes, they are. Terry Bradshaw.
And Terry Bradshaw kept going, who the hell is this guy? Like, that's what it was, where the veterans were like, we have to take note of this guy because he's going to ruin us if we don't like literally create plays to stop him.
Joe Theismann had and we'll bring him up later.
Oh, man.
Yes, we will. He basically had this quote where he said, look, a lot of guys will compare other guys to people in the past.
Mm-hmm.
There is no comparison to him. He's like essentially like an alien.
Yeah.
Just dropped in the middle of the NFL.
An alien that does cocaine.
A lot of it.
That was the other thing. He said that if he did some drugs in college, but like that wasn't where his like drugs started to like he did a ton of them. It was when he went to the Giants, and in his entire NFL career, he was just doing cocaine.
Well, I mean, you're in New York. And it's the 80s. And there are no downsides to that
There's
drug.
no downsides.
There's absolutely no downsides to that particular drug in 1981.
That's right.
Not at all. He would be a great person for the DARE program at that time.
That's
I
true.
feel like.
That's true.
So in 81, there was a great story about it. They're playing the Cardinals. And he's supposed to be in pass coverage, and he didn't really know what was going on, so he just rushed the quarterback and got a sack.
Yep.
And then Bill Parcells was like, I don't care, that play's a dandy.
Literally, he was like, hey, you were supposed to drop back on that play. And he was just like, okay, well, write it in that I'm going to blitz because that worked. And they were like, yes, no, we're doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. I'm just telling you, you were supposed to do something else.
We call that a sack. That's not a busted play.
Yes.
So he's the 1981 Defensive Rookie of the Year because he's just an absolute stud. And mind you, this Giants team he's going into has largely been shit since like the greatest game ever played era.
Yes.
Like they're a down franchise and not like where they're like, oh, mediocre. They're crappy.
Yes.
Straight up crappy.
He didn't want to go play in New York. That's
No.
what, like you were saying, he wanted to play in the Cowboys. He went and saw their stadium, and he literally was like, I don't want to play here, and then got to talking with the coaching crew of Belichick, Parcells, and he goes, oh, this is a defensive team. Like, this is a defensive-minded team that I'm going to excel in. And it was like, yes. He was smart enough to, like, realize that. It's like, yeah, the stadium's falling apart, but this is going to be, there's going to be so many schemes just set up for you to just destroy quarterbacks.
And there's a lot of good defensive players around him, too, to make him look even better than he already is as a young player, which I think needs to be brought to the fore because you have Harry Carson and guys like that on the defensive side. Like they already have a strong linebacker, and they're about to get Carl Banks.
I was going to say
they're Pepper Johnson, guys like that.
They're definitely looking at knowing that, like, hey, winning games, you start with defense, and then we'll build an offense.
Absolutely. So that first year, he has 9.5 sacks. He's not only the defensive rookie of the year, he's the defensive player of the year.
Yep.
Which, has that ever been done?
I don't think so. I don't think anybody's ever done the double of being a rookie defensive player of the year. And also, he's been playing football for like 6 years.
That's wilded me out.
Like literally he's like, this is my 6th year, 7th year actually playing with this pigskin. The best defensive player. And I can't even imagine what New Orleans was like watching him just be this guy, just like, we could have had him.
There's George Rogers for a steady 4 to 5 yards.
Yes, exactly.
LT just took that guy's face off.
Rogers, not a bad. We're not talking shit on.
He won a Super Bowl with the Reds. I mean, he was a good player on those shitty Saints team.
Yes, he was a Heisman Trophy winner. The number 1 pick should have been LT.
Oh, and one stat I read, and this just is a testament, not only to Parcells, a defensive coordinator, but just as LT being like a catalyst for everything. In 1980, they gave up 425 points. In 1981, they gave up 257. Mm-hmm. They made the playoffs that year, and they won a playoff game.
Well, he almost made them 100% better in regards to like points. It really is a testament to what a ridiculous athlete and just amazing linebacker he was.
Oh, for sure. And while they beat the Eagles in the wild card round, they do lose to the 49ers in the divisional round. And what I wanted to bring up was Bill Walsh, their head coach, who's an offensive innovator, like another one we'll get to, where he designed a brand new offense basically designed a way to not stop LT, but have to limit the carnage.
Yes. Like I found that to be very interesting. And they even said, they were like, he didn't have a bad game, but he was kind of slowed down a little.
If it was a regular player, you'd be, that's a hell of a game, So what Walsh did was bring a guard to end up blocking him.
Yep.
Because he signaled the end of using running backs in pass protection against elite outside pass rushing threats.
He literally was like, this is our number one pass protection guy. You're lining up against LT every time. And it was like,
or you're shifting out.
Or you're shifting out.
Calling
Yes.
protections to where he's picking him up, the tackle's picking someone else up.
Yep.
And I mean, mind you, it's not just some run-of-the-mill coach. It's Bill, and they had talked about, I forget which player it was for the 49ers, but he was the only one he would give a number to in film study.
Oh, yeah.
In designing a game plan because of how good that he was.
Yep.
So if you're scaring Bill Walsh because he's having trouble finding out what to do with you, and he's a rookie.
And he's a
goddamn rookie.
He's literally a rookie at this time, and everybody could see who he was going to become,
but
and who he was.
He's living hard right now already. Because back in college, it was just a tin of Skull and some brewskis.
Yep.
I loved his draft story where they asked him, do you remember getting drafted? He was like, I was about 40 beers deep by the time the Giants picked me.
Well, he saw he didn't go first.
Yep.
And then he goes, I'm going to go grab another beer. And he came back and he was like, oh, they picked me to the Giants. He never saw it.
No. You know what's funny, though? If he had gone to New Orleans, that would have lined up. I just thought about this a couple of days ago. He would have been part of Dome Patrol.
Oh, my God.
I don't know if they would have taken Pat Swilling, but it would have been Ricky with a Y or an E. Jackson, him, Sam Mills, and Vaughn Johnson.
They would have killed a quarterback.
I mean, that would have been murder.
That literally.
Like unalived people. But after the season, because he's living so hard, I saw the Giants took out a $2 million insurance policy.
So he crashed his car speeding. And when the paramedics and all them show up, they were like, oh, you could have died. And he was just like, oh, I don't give a shit. No. He was so reckless off the field as well as on. That was the thing. And you're right. Like the Giants being like, this guy could kill himself at any time, not on purpose.
Like we talked about Ken Griffey Jr., how he just only had one speed. Just imagine that with cocaine.
Oh, my God.
And with football, where you're in a car accident literally on every play with that particular position.
Yep.
82 strikes shortened, so 7.5 sacks in 9 games is actually really good.
Yep.
You can see it on NFL films, and this represents the type of athlete that the NFL had never seen before. They're playing the Lions on Thanksgiving, and in a 6-6 game, he goes 90+ on a pick six. And he looks like the fastest guy on the field.
I was just going to say, if you watch this play, he drops back and he is so fast at getting to the ball. And then as soon as he takes off, you're just like, did they put in a running back? What the hell is happening here?
You never saw 3-4 outside linebackers who could play pass coverage like that.
Yep.
That was an anomaly in the NFL.
He could literally do everything.
Yeah.
There wasn't a part of his game that you were like, okay, we're going to attack this side like this. It's like, no. LT lined up on the left. We're going to go right the entire game.
He said some of his favorite plays were running after the running back when they'd run away from him.
Yes.
Like, oh my God.
Chasing him down.
83, Ray Perkins goes to Alabama, who's their head coach.
Yep.
And Parcells is promoted as head coach, which for Giants fans, that's probably the greatest thing that could ever happen to you.
Yep.
They're still having some issues at quarterback, kind of figuring it out. They don't make the playoffs in 82. They don't make it in 83. He did win Defensive Player of the Year, though, in 82. I didn't want to bring that up.
And he's all-team defense every single year. We'll talk about when he's not. How about that?
Let's do that. So every year we're going to go over until he's not. He's a Pro Bowler.
Yes.
At least a Pro Bowler.
At least.
First team All-Pro.
Yes.
83, he has 9 sacks and 2 picks. Part of this is he doesn't have a lot of sacks is there's injuries at inside linebacker, so he's having to play at that spot. And it reminded me of the Alan Faneca episode where he made the Pro Bowl at tackle, as opposed to guard.
Yep.
But Lawrence Taylor, not just making the Pro Bowl at one position, he makes first-team All-Pro at both.
Yep.
The only guy to do it. And we're going to make fun of him probably later for some decisions he makes, but just understand what an anomaly of a human being and football player this is. Makes the Pro Bowl again. 84, Parcells is on the hot seat, though, because they have a really shitty year in 83.
A horrible year. I think they went like 3-12-1. It really was like not what everybody was anticipating with this young team. You know what I mean? With like all of this stuff and Parcells taking over, it was more of like, oh, we might need to shake this up.
Good, and I will say, good on George Young and Wellington Mara and all the people in the Giants front office. In that 84 draft, they took Carl Banks.
Yes.
To play that inside, where they were drafting near the top of 84. They went with defense. They went with best player available, best fit available, as opposed to just, need.
Yes.
And I think that really benefited their team. And Lawrence has even talked about how when Parcells was on the hot seat, he was pissed that he was like, no, this is the guy that we need here.
Yes.
And in 84, 11 and a half sacks, 7 forced fumbles. I did want to add, he was really the first guy to incorporate the tomahawk as far as a sack. It's not good enough for Lawrence Taylor just to get a sack. You got to get the ball out, too, and get it for your team.
Yep, because his power comes from the chop.
The chop. Because people think it's speed, but sometimes in these situations, it's all about power, Chris.
That's true.
It's all about power. That year, after the season, he almost gets courted by the USFL. I don't know if you saw that.
This was an interesting one because he did want a bigger contract. And looking back at the money they were paying him, it's kind of ridiculous that they would ever try and hold out on him, which they did, I think, 2 more times.
Yes.
And he takes $1 million interest-free loan from our president.
From our current president, that's right. And the New Jersey Generals.
To play not for the NFL, which is very interesting. If looking at like the way it's happening, you're just kind of like, oh, that's weird. It's like,
well, 84 was a pivotal year in the NFL because that was the draft where Irving Fryer went number 1. And there were a lot of, and Steve Young should have went number 1. There were a lot of guys that jumped to the USFL.
Yep.
We'll probably get into it after 86, but like the USFL was looking like a legitimate threat.
Yeah.
At that time, so he signed a futures contract to play in 88 for $1 million. Then the next day he said, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And
he kind of realized, he was just like, this isn't going to be the same type of competition in that league.
So he returned. So I saw the stipulations to go back to the Giants. They had to give the $1 million back to Trump. The Giants had to pay him $750,000 for the next 6 years.
Yep.
Which was ridiculous. And then the Giants signed LT to and this, I'm not even factoring this in for inflation. $6.5 million
for 5 years, I think it was.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
It's insane. It's insane because mediocre linebackers right now would make more than that in 1 year.
Oh, my God.
Not the best linebacker we've ever seen. Mediocre ones.
Alex Highsmith is the second best pass rusher on the Steelers. He has a bag.
Yes.
At the same he's not even the best player at his own position.
Exactly.
And he's a Pro Bowler.
And he makes like $8 million a year.
More than that.
It's crazy. That's what I mean. It's crazy that they would hold out on this type of talent.
But, I mean, if you think about it, this is men of their time. There's no free agency in the NFL at this point. So, and because they didn't win in 82 during that strike where they're really pinching pennies.
Yes.
So if you want to, go listen to episodes, I think 41 and 42. We do a history of free agency in the NFL. So check that out. 85, this is when the Giants start turning the corner because Phil Simms finally is the quarterback.
Yes. So they've always had this great defense, but finally, like, offense is clicking enough to where they can really start having winning seasons.
Yeah. 13 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, and we have a Monday Night Football moment against the Redskins.
And this is actually, he's talked about this because he was like, obviously I'm not trying to hurt Like I'm going as hard as I can, but when it happened, he was like distraught over it.
He was horrified.
Yes.
Like you never saw him after any sack before or since in his career go to the other sideline and start waving people over.
Yes.
So it's November 18th, 1985. He sacks Joe Theismann and breaks both of the bones in his leg. Mm-hmm. And basically sounded like a shotgun went off. And it's difficult for him to even watch this play.
Yeah.
And Theismann has even talked about, he's not a dirty player.
No.
It was just
an unbelievably strong man coming against two legs that just couldn't take it.
That was a botched flea flicker.
Yes.
And I bring this up because, as we talked about with Bill Walsh, Joe Gibbs, another innovative, amazing Hall of Fame offensive head coach, to limit LT's destruction, created the H-back position, where you basically use a tight end to chip or a tight end to help block him off the edge, where you're not using a fullback, and it gives your offense extra versatility.
Because he was running over fullbacks.
Yeah.
He was literally, it was almost
Trucking
like, it was almost like they weren't there.
Yeah. 85, they make the playoffs. And I mean, you can start to see everything being built here.
Yep.
They beat the Niners 17-3
Yep.
in the playoffs. What was it? That was the game Bill Parcells said, how about that West Coast offense? Typical Parcells with that one. And then they end up getting shut out by the Bears, the 85 Bears in the divisional round, which, I mean, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? The 85 Bears, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? But in 86, we get to probably the greatest season by a defensive player in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
I don't think I'm overstating this right now with how amazing. So I remember a few years ago when TJ Watt tied the sack record and thinking like, man, he deserved the MVP of the league. He was great that year. I'm not going to lie. Watching LT 86, those games, I'm like, what the fuck was I even talking about? Holy shit. I mean, it was ridiculous how he dominated and forced offenses into just mayhem, essentially. In 86, he not only wins Defensive Player of the Year for the third time in his first 6 seasons, he wins the MVP of the league.
Yep.
Do you know how hard that is to do in an offensive league? He's only the second guy to ever do it, the last to ever do it, almost 40 years ago. He won the MVP. Alan Page in 71 is the only other guy to do it. They go 14-2. He had 20 and a half sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and oh my God, he was Dr. Roxo from Metalocalypse, just going crazy out there.
Because he was really into his cocaine use at this time. So, like, he was doing drugs early on in his career, but, like, this is when shit got, like, really bad.
Like, not dark and disturbing as far as results.
No.
But for his personal life, oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC, won 14 games. They outscored San Francisco and Washington in their 2 NFC playoff games 66-3. What the hell?
And those were 2 of the best teams.
You beat Bill Walsh and Joe Gibbs. It's not the fact that you scored 66 points against the 2 of them.
No, it's that they scored 3.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Bill Belichick is the best defensive coordinator in NFL history, but 3 points?
Yeah.
Come on, LT. So they go to Super Bowl 21, and they play the Broncos. And like the Broncos of that era, they do Broncos things.
Yeah,
There's a big play by LT in this game at the beginning when Denver was hanging around. I mean, they were looking to break the game open, and LT stops Elway on the goal line.
Yep.
And they end up pulling away. They win 39-20, and he's a Super Bowl champion. In 6 years, and he has a quote about this: Pro Bowler every year, Defensive Player of the Year 3 times, NFL MVP, and Super Bowl champion. And when he talks about this, he goes, it was almost anticlimactic.
Yes. He was like, I won everything. Like, literally, he was like, I won every individual trophy I could win. I won the Super Bowl. And it felt like He was like, there's almost nothing more in football for me. And he was doing a bunch of cocaine. So I imagine his happiness levels were just kind of.
Well, the thing that'll make him more happy is more cocaine.
That's correct.
I feel like cocaine, that's the only thing that'll make a.
That's exactly what I mean.
But you go, like, that's the saddest part, though, is if he had retired then, he would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer regardless.
Without a doubt.
Like, he wouldn't have even gotten the Gale Sayers treatment. That's more than the Gale Sayers treatment.
Yeah.
Like, 87, we have another strike because they're still fighting for free agency. There's no Kurt Flood in the NFL, as we've discussed in a previous episode. He crosses the picket line early. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, he got a little bit of heat for that because he was just like, the Giants are losing. I'm losing $60,000 a week. We just have to get back into play. And a lot of guys were like, that's messed up. Like, we're trying to like change this. And he was pretty much just like, I'm playing. I don't give a shit.
And that was what he was about, though, was winning. And also buying cocaine. So if you're taking that away by sitting out, he's not going to be able to do it, you know. They have a pretty shitty year in 87. They go 6-9. Still has 12 sacks.
Yep.
I think he played in 12 games and 5 forced fumbles. This year, though, in 87, he tests positive for cocaine for the first time.
This is the first time. So
and no one knows about it.
They keep it under wraps. They're like, he was like, I'm going to clean it up. Nobody knows about him testing positive for cocaine. So when we get into the next year,
oh boy,
he tests positive again.
And his wife has talked about this, about what a joke rehab used to be in the 80s.
Yeah.
Especially for something like cocaine.
And you're a professional NFL player. They were like, yeah, sure, you can stop. Like it
just don't do it, Lawrence.
Yes.
Don't do what makes you happy and what makes you great.
Just say no. It was like shit like that, where it was like, that's not going to work.
So in 88, he pisses hot again, and they send him to rehab, and he misses 4 games that year. Even though he misses 4 games, he still has 15 and a half sacks.
It's crazy.
This year they play the Saints in a game where they're kind of fighting for playoff contention, and he tears a pec muscle.
Yep.
During the game. And mind you, the Giants offense is really sputtering. It's one of those dome patrol defenses carrying the load, so it's a slobber knocker type game. He has 7 tackles, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Parcells said it was the greatest game he ever saw.
It's crazy to think he's out there legitimately injured and still plays at the highest level.
Look, if someone goes to the bathroom for me, I'll play, and I'll give everything.
That's right.
That was the Lawrence Taylor way. They missed the playoffs that year due to some tiebreakers. 89, 15 sacks.
He really was just unbelievable.
You can debate who might be the greatest defensive player in the history of the NFL. You can't debate who the best linebacker is.
No. The consistency of sacks and how many times he rushes the quarterback and like all of those stats that they weren't really marking down at that point. He made teams change their offense. How about that?
He made Hall of Fame coaches known for offense change the way they designed how to play the game.
Exactly.
To play the game, not just, for a couple of packages, literally offensive formations.
We're not talking about practice here.
Not a game.
We're talking about practice. That's what I mean. He was so unbelievable, and the only other player in any other sport that I feel like was at this high of a level doing cocaine was Maradona. And they both have this thing where people are like, well, what if they were sober during that? And my thought is like, no. That worked for their benefit.
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking the same thing doing this research.
Yes, this is why he was just unbelievably reckless, and his mind was just probably going at 1,000,000 miles a minute. He's just like, I'm gonna go there. You're done. Like
I probably said during our Maradona episode, it's not talent juice, it's talent powder.
That's right.
God.
That's right.
There was a story. Apparently, Belichick would say he'd always fall asleep in meetings.
Oh yeah.
And one day he got so pissed at him, and he called him out. And then he was asleep, woke up, Basically like Charles Haley we had talked about. He knew what everyone was supposed to do on the specific play, specific package, and was like, I need to do this. He needs to do this. He needs to do this. He needs to do this. And then he went right back to sleep. Because that's Lawrence Taylor.
That's Lawrence Taylor. And he did not sleep the night before.
Of course he didn't.
So
he came in with handcuffs still on after a sexcapade.
And they lost the key. So he had to come into a team meeting handcuffed.
Can you imagine, though, Belichick going, is someone going to need to keister this key out of Lawrence right now? On to Cincinnati!
It's crazy.
He played that 89 season, though, with a fractured tibia.
I saw that. It's almost unbelievable. Because they were saying, like, he played through almost any injury.
Yeah. Oh, no. Like, because he wanted to play football. He wanted to give 110%. I will say about this 89 team, I do believe 86 is the best Giants team that's ever existed.
Yeah.
89 might have been their second best. They were upset in the divisional round in overtime by Jim Everett and the Rams.
Oh, yes.
That was the Terry Kennard game and the Flipper Anderson game. Even though in the game he had two sacks and a forced fumble.
Of course.
So, I mean, that's just Lawrence Taylor. So you get to 1990, makes the Pro Bowl again. This is when he was challenged by guys like Groh and Romeo Crennel and those defensive assistants to step up his game. Even though he's 10 years in the league and he's made 10 Pro Bowls.
Yes.
God. He has 10.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and the Giants have to play about the last 20% of the season with a backup quarterback. So they're really relying heavily on their defense with Jeff Hostetler taking the snaps as opposed to Phil Simms. And in the divisional round, Rodney Hampton, their starting running back, gets hurt. So O.J. Anderson has to come in and play. And they smoke the Bears, 31-3. They smoke them. And we get into the NFC Championship against the Niners. Lawrence plays a huge... We talked about it in our Roger Craig episode, if you missed that. Niners are going for a three-peat. Giants are down to a backup quarterback, backup running back, and an uncircumcised penis coaching a hell of a defense.
I was going to say, probably, like, you think about the Giants winning, and it's in this era, and it's never about their offense. I feel like it's just always about, like, well, the defense shut them out. They did their job, and they let the offense have, like, so many more downs than they should have.
The offensive highlights are like Sims dotting passes, Joe Morris or O.J. Anderson running, and then Bavaro carrying like 30 people on his back.
Yep.
But it's a very small reel compared to a coked-up Lawrence Taylor reel. I always think of this as like David versus Goliath, except Goliath has an AR-15. or David has an AR-15. Sorry, I've had a couple.
That's all right.
But January 20th, 1991, they don't play football like this anymore, Chris. And the Niners are just as aggressive and slobber. Like, this isn't finesse versus badassness. This is badass versus badass.
Yes.
And late in the game, the Niners are trying to run out the clock. Joe Montana's already been iced by Leonard Marshall. And Steve Young hands the ball off to Roger Craig to basically ice the game. If they get a first down on this set of downs, they're going to the Super Bowl, and they're likely beating the Bills in a much different game than the one we'll talk about, but I still believe they would have three-peated.
Yes.
Backup nose tackle Eric Howard hits Craig in just the right spot, who is not a fumbler
at
all.
Yep, ball pops out, and then who's there?
Johnny on the spot?
And who's there? And he picks it up, and that's the other thing is, like, even as having fast guys on your offense, you're not catching up to LT.
No, not at all.
He literally in the middle of this run stopped, did a bump, and then kept going.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, you have to get that talent powder.
Beautiful. Yeah, you got to get it in.
Got to get it in. Like Hollywood Henderson in that Super Bowl.
Everybody talks about LeBron James thing when he came out and threw the powder. LT used to do the same thing, but he would throw it in his face.
Yeah, it'd just be like... He'd come out looking like Tony Montana, and then Bill Parcells would be like, wow, that's just like 6 sacks in a row. So he recovers the ball. And mind you, this isn't a tie game. If the Niners get this next first down,
It's over.
the game is over. They're down 13-12. Hostetler makes a couple of really key passes. Matt Barr drills the field goal. And that was the last time we saw a legitimate three-peat go up in smoke.
Yep.
Honestly. Or powder. It doesn't matter.
It went up in powder.
It went up in powder. So we get to Super Bowl 25, and LT doesn't have like a sexy game on the stat sheet, but that's more due to Belichick's defensive scheme.
Yeah.
Where you've only got 2 defensive linemen, you've got the extra defensive backs in there. You're almost begging the Bills to run the ball, which they didn't do.
Yes.
Until the end of the game. And they play it to perfection with their ball control offense. And LT's out there for the last play because they'd always put him out there on the field goal block
On the field goal block team.
And they end up winning.
Yeah.
They end up winning
Was it
20-19 on the
2019?
missed, Scott Norwood field goal with a
Yeah.
backup. To me, that's more impressive than that Eagles team with Foles. At least Foles had an extensive history as a starter before he took over. Like, you're going to a cold Hostetler, and then your defense is just like, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Seriously, it really is impressive to like think about them having a guy who just isn't a starting quarterback in the NFL take essentially a Super Bowl, beating these 49ers who were unbelievable and this Bills team who was fucking amazing. And yeah, man, LT was, I don't know if we'll ever see the likes of him again, you know?
No, not at all. The sad part is, though, after this game, much like the first Super Bowl,
He kind of loses his drive.
it's unfortunate because there's a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous, like the dude in the Big Lebowski.
Yep.
Parcells decides to quit.
Yes.
And not only does Parcells decide to quit, he quits after Belichick takes a job with the Browns. And because he does this, they bring in they have Ray Hanley already there, but LT kind of loses his drive.
Yes. And they're not
as good a team.
Yes, they're not defensively as focused. They're not as good as a team. They're just it's not the same coming back. And he said this, he goes, I could feel it coming back after that second Super Bowl. It was almost like I feel like I'm playing on a different team.
And it's more anticlimactic, too, than the first one. And you're dealing with the quarterback controversy with Sims and Hostetler and that bullshit. Guys on the team are getting older, and they're not really drafting well enough to replace guys on both sides of the ball. And they go into a bit of a tailspin the next 2 years.
And his numbers drop.
His numbers definitely drop.
Yeah, which is
sad.
Yes.
Because what universe would we be in, though, if Belichick waited and then took that Giants job in 91?
Oh, my God. That's
a weird spider web.
Yeah, that's a weird one because it really would have changed the Giants of the 90s, if you will.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like it's such a weird, because I feel like LT could have had 5 to 7 more years at that top level. But when this happened, it's almost just kind of like, yeah, I'm going to play out my contract.
Because you feel like along the way, the dudes that kept him motivated the most were Parcells and then Belichick, who were position coach, coordinator, or head coach. And after that, along with the Giants kind of going tits up, it's, what am I here to do?
Yes.
What am I? And it's sad how it ends, but that first decade stands alone.
Oh, no. There's, like you said, he could have retired after 6 years and been first ballot Hall of Famer. But now you could just kind of see the need of great players to have great coaches that understand like how to push this guy, how to like set him up for success.
And that was the thing you always talked about Parcells, was he was the guy that like, you know, got him on the ball too.
Yes.
Where going for something. So those first 2 years with Hanley, missed the playoffs. He's fired. He only came back in 93 because Dan Reeves got there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Like-
and he actually got excited. I
Yeah.
remember reading that where he was like, this could be good.
This could be good.
Yeah.
They make the playoffs that year. They almost won the division in 93, but unfortunately, they lose to the Niners in the divisional round. They get spanked. And after that, he retires. LT retires after 13 seasons. Probably could have had a few more.
That's what I mean.
In my opinion.
And a lot of people say that, like, the drug use this is when he's, like, really, really addicted to cocaine. After he retires, he essentially turns his mansion into, like, a crack house.
Which is crazy to think.
And he has said this. He was like, no. Like, we put sheets on the windows. Like, it was horrible.
Well, so what he did was he, out of a lot of construction paper, he made these flyers, right? These invitations.
Yep.
That looked like a bicep. And it said, "What up? We're a bunch of cool guys looking to hang out with another bunch of cool guys."
I thought we were going with the dick because it was more manly.
I thought it had bicep. You need to have more veins, Chris.
We could use a blonde guy in the group, so...
One of his thoughts, though, after he retired was, he has even said this, one of my first thoughts was, now I can do drugs recreationally.
Yeah.
Oh boy, does his post-NFL career get weird. And not in a good way.
No, he needed football to, like, because goddamn does he go off the rails.
So from 95 to 98, he's in rehab twice. He's arrested twice for trying to buy cocaine from undercover officers.
And you got to think these are probably, like, maybe some 49er fans
Possibly.
that are undercover officers, and they're like, no, we're setting up LT. Because that's...
Yeah, but he can't hurt you at that point.
But that's the way it kind of felt, was they were like, we're going after this guy.
What did Steve Young do? Call his local bishop, hey, LT's out.
All right, we're going for him.
97, he is brought up on false tax returns and has to serve 3 months of house arrest and 5 years probation in 2000 for it.
Yeah, because they like started this company and did stock dumping. It was a bunch of, like, really shady. I mean, he's being involved with shady New York guys in the cocaine era.
Yeah.
So, like, this is Wall Street shade. So, like,
Gordon Gekko's his best friend.
Yes, he dabbles a little bit in that, and they bust him for it, and then, like, it really is just a not what a Hall of Fame best linebacker ever post career should be like.
But it's what made him
Yes,
a Hall of Fame linebacker.
that's true.
Did you read the story about Phil Simms' number retirement?
No.
So they're at Giants Stadium September 4th, 1995, and Phil Simms, because he's there to support his teammate.
Yep.
And he's in a sport coat and dress shoes, and Phil Simms asks him to go out for a pass. And he's had a few beers.
And he's had a couple.
And probably a toot ski or two.
That's right.
And he says, oh my God, if I drop this pass, I'm going to have to run my black ass all the way back up to Upper Saddle River because there's no way I can stay here. He caught the pass.
yeah.
Like LT does, comes through.
But it was questionable.
But during all of this 90s, he's acting in movies. He's in The Waterboy telling people not to smoke crack.
Yep.
Getting his Porsche stolen by Vicky Valancourt. He was in Any Given Sunday, which was perfect. He played that role perfectly in Any Given Sunday.
Yes.
And what was it? He was in Shaft. He was in fucking Shaft.
Yeah, he was in Shaft.
Give it up to him for Shaft. Getting some DUIs in the aftermath, some special DUIs. And then May of 2010, he enters the Malone zone, as we like to call it. You want to talk about this
No,
one?
you go. You go.
So, if you listen to episode 199, we discuss what the Malone zone is. And it's for Karl Malone, and what a stand-up person the former power forward of the Utah Jazz used to be. May 2010, he's at a Holiday Inn, and he's arrested with a prostitute who happens to be 16 years old. And he's arrested. And what ends up happening is it ends up coming out that the pimp, not named Pepperjack. Pepperjack knows what to do. Pepperjack is about Fraggle Rock,
That's
not
right.
about this.
That's right. He's about a Fraggle Rock thermos.
Pepperjack loved Fraggle Rock.
You get off that rock, you can be Pepper Jack's top hoe.
1 rock of crack, please.
Yep.
1 crack rock.
1 crack rock, please.
He encouraged said woman of the night to say she was 19. Doesn't really matter.
No.
Doesn't really matter because of, law and order type of stuff. March 22nd, 2016, he's sentenced to 6 years of probation and a low-level sex offender.
Yep.
For these charges. Also gets divorced again during this time period. And over the last 5 years has been in trouble with the law for not reporting where he's living.
Yes. So he pretty much is just kind of like on probation and being very flippant about it, being like, well, I mean, I'm wherever I'm going to be.
I'm LT.
I'm LT.
I can do whatever. I can live on Fraggle Rock if I want to
exactly.
and not notify my neighbors.
You think I haven't been smoking Fraggle Rock? You crazy? I've been smoking so much Fraggle Rock. It's sad to think that it has just kind of spiraled and not gotten better. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes these guys have these like redemption arcs where they're like, cleaned up my stuff, I'm talking to kids, I'm in the water boy, and then you make a realization when you go down this like rap sheet and you're like, oh, it's been bad the whole time.
Oh my God, that swamp thing stole my fucking Porsche. But no, it is tragic, and it almost is like what you had alluded to about Maradona before. This was the only thing keeping him level.
Yes.
At the time, because they had talked about his teammates would have to piss for him for these drug tests.
Yep.
And like, I'm just hoping that Parcells or Belichick, instead of a chore wheel, had an LT piss wheel.
Yep. They're like, all right, who's this week?
Who's this week? Leonard Marshall, you got us? Ah, damn it. Pepper, Gary Reasons, we got you.
If he had played for Dallas,
oh God,
they would have had to go get piss from preschool to pee clean. That's the only thing. Everybody was probably doing it.
Oh God, no, it's a terrible end to his career. But by that same token, I want to go over what a dominant motherfucker he is.
Best linebacker ever. And like you said, there's few guys who changed the game. He changed the game.
And it's not like he changed a rule like Mel Blount.
Yeah.
He changed how football is played at the professional level.
Exactly.
Because of his dominance. 142 sacks, 10 Pro Bowls, Defensive Rookie of the Year, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, the 75th and 100th anniversary NFL teams.
Yep.
Stands the test of time. The greatest linebacker we'll ever see. Tragic outside of that.
Yes.
And good Lord, I hope he gets his shit together because he's still alive.
I was going to say, I actually really do hope, because some of these guys, we want them to burn Karl Malone.
Yes, Karl Malone, yes.
Literally, a guy like LT, you're like, I want him to get his shit together and just do whatever he wants that isn't crack.
LT got wrong directions to the Malone zone. Karl chose the direction to the Malone zone.
That's very true.
Like, yes, of course.
They're still there.
Yeah.
They're still in that zone, which is fucking horrible, but it is really like
disturbing,
and you want him to get his shit together.
It's very sad, but let's remember Lawrence Taylor, the football player, at least for this 300th podcast for the Sports Experience, everyone.
I agree.
Hell yes.